The Silent Neighbor, a tale of trust and betrayal. Once, in a quiet village, there lived a neighbor who was as silent and mysterious as the breeze that whispered through the trees. His name was Namdi, and though he was friendly, no one ever truly knew him. He never asked for anything, no matter how hard times got. His life was one of solitude and quiet dignity. If anyone offered him food or help, he would politely refuse, sometimes even with a hint of suspicion. If you insisted, he would act as though you were trying to poison him, though it wasn't that he truly thought that. It was just the way he lived. Despite this, Namdi was always kind when he spoke to people, with a smile that never seemed to reach his eyes. Everyone in the village respected him, though they couldn't fully understand why he lived the way he did. One day, I had to move out of my house in the village for a while. When I returned to my family home, I was surprised to see that Namdi was still living in the same room, in the same quiet manner. Nothing had changed. It was as though time stood still for him. Curious, I asked my father why Namdi had lost so much weight and why he seemed different. My father looked at me with a knowing expression and sighed. Namdi lost his job a while back, he said softly. Not long after that, he fell ill. His rent expired 5 months ago, but I couldn't bring myself to ask him to leave. His condition is too dire. I've let him stay for all this time, even though he doesn't have the means to pay me. My heart sank with pity for the man I had once known. I couldn't believe that someone so proud and reserved had fallen so low. The next day, I decided to do something special for him. I cooked a meal, something delicious, hoping it would bring a bit of comfort to his lonely life. I knew, however, that if I simply handed it to him, he would reject it without a second thought. So, I came up with a plan. I decided to bring the meal to him and share it in his room. That way, he couldn't refuse. I walked to his door, carrying the plate with the food and 2 drinks in hand. When he opened the door and saw me, I smiled warmly. "Uncle, I want to eat with you in your room," I said cheerfully. He looked at me, his eyes darting to the left and right, as if making sure no one was watching. "What happened to your own food?" he asked, suspiciously. I shrugged. "Nothing, Ene. I just want to catch up with you. It's been so long." He smiled a little, and then, to my surprise, he stepped aside and let me in. His room was as plain as always, with only the bare essentials. There was no sign of foodstuffs or cooking materials anywhere. "Do you have a spoon?" I asked hesitantly. "Yes, I do," he replied, handing me one. I felt the weight of the moment as I gathered my courage. "Uncle, I know you don't eat out, but today is a special day. It's a season of love. I want to share this food with you. Please don't say no." He chuckled softly. I knew it. I said to myself, this one is a setup. He took the spoon I offered, and I could see his eyes soften. "All right, let's eat." I smiled in relief and placed the food on the table between us. He waited for me to take the first bite, and then, with surprising eagerness, he began to eat. The hunger in his eyes was clear, and the way he devoured the food showed just how much he had missed a meal like this. As we ate, I couldn't help but ask the question that had been bothering me for years. "Uncle, why don't you ever accept anything from anyone? Why do you live like this? No friends visit you. I've never seen you eat out. Even when you cook, you do it in your room and eat alone." He paused, looking at me with a faraway expression. Then, in a low voice, he began to speak. "You are very observant. You're right to wonder. You see, when I was young, my family was poisoned. On Christmas Day, all 7 of us ate from the same bowl of food. Every single one of them died, except for me. I was just a baby, waiting to suck from my mother's breast. When I grew up, they told me the story. I realized something that day: I realized that the easiest way to take a life is through food. My heart froze, and I looked at him, wide-eyed. And you survived? He nodded slowly. Yes. I was the only one. Since then, I've never trusted anyone again. People's kindness is often a trick. That's why I don't accept food or help. I'd rather starve than risk my life. He took another bite of the rice and drank some water. But today, I'll make an exception. You're the first person in over 40 years whose food I've eaten. Not because I trust you fully, but because I know you mean no harm. I'm so hungry, I might as well die from this food if it's poisoned. At least I'll die full. He laughed softly, and I laughed with him, though the heaviness in my heart remained. As we finished the meal together, I realized something important. Sometimes, the strange behaviors we see in others are not because of who they are, but because of the scars they carry from the past. Nnamdi wasn't just a man who didn't trust others, he was a man who had learned to protect himself from the pain of betrayal, a man who had been broken by loss and had built walls around his heart. And that day, as we shared a simple meal, I realized that even the most guarded people need love, too, even if they don't show it.